We gave the OnePlus 13R a glowing review when it first launched back in January. And honestly, that didn't come as a surprise. OnePlus has been refining this formula for years now, packing last year's flagship hardware into a more affordable package and selling it under the R lineup. But here's the real question. 6 months in, after using it as my daily driver, has the experience held up or have the cracks started to show? And with Amazon's Prime Day, there's new reason to pay attention. The 13R is dropping 3,000 rupees during the sale, bringing it down from rupees 42,999 to 39,999 rupees. Plus, OnePlus is tossing in a free pair of OnePlus Buds 3, which, by the way, are excellent earbuds. So let's talk about what it's like to live with the OnePlus 13R after half a year. The design of the 13R isn't revolutionary, but it still feels premium. Flat aluminium sides, rounded corners, and Gorilla Glass 7i on both the front and back make this thing durable. I've dropped it a couple of times, with and without a case, and there's not a scratch inside. That said, the flat edges can dig into your hand during long gaming or scrolling sessions. The included case helps, but without it, the sharp edges are noticeable. And while OnePlus has saved some of its hardware experiments for newer models like the so-called OnePlus Key, I'm glad the iconic alert slider is still there. It's one of those small thoughtful touches I end up using every single day. Not everything needs to be reimagined. Well, maybe except for the IP65 dust and water resistance. At this price, an IP68 rating feels like the bare minimum. Now, the display on the 13R is where this phone punches far above its weight. It's a flat 6.78-inch AMOLED LTPO panel with super thin uniform bezels. Colors pop, HDR content looks fantastic thanks to Dolby Vision support, and it gets bright enough to handle direct sunlight. I've tested plenty of mid-range phones this year, but the 13R screen still feels like one of the best in its class. My only nitpick is that the fingerprint sensor sits a little too low for my liking. The display is backed by a stereo speaker setup that gets impressively loud, and even without Dolby Atmos support, there's little to complain about. Under the hood, the 13R is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 with 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB UFS 4.0 storage on the base model. And honestly, it's overkill in the best possible way. 6 months in, this phone hasn't slowed down once. Games like BGMI Genshin Impact run flawlessly at high settings and multitasking is effortless. OnePlus is also promising 4 years of Android updates and 6 years of security patches. That's solid, but it's worth mentioning that Google and Samsung are now pushing 7 years of updates on their flagships. What makes the software experience great though is Oxygen OS 15. It's lightweight, smooth, and packed with thoughtful features. The ability to swap icon packs without switching launchers and swiping with 3 fingers or dragging apps from the smart sidebar are things I miss on a lot of other phones. By the way, this is the most recent update we've received on the phone, and it's genuinely made a noticeable difference to network quality. Earlier, I was getting random dropped calls far more often than I would like, but that issue seems to be resolved now. I wouldn't say the 13R is completely free of third-party apps, but the good news is that pretty much anything preloaded can be uninstalled without hassle. As for the haptics, perfect. Sharp, precise, and deeply satisfying. Nothing more to add. Some things don't need paragraphs of praise. There's also a lot of AI baked in. Some features are forgettable, but tools like AI Eraser and Circle to Search have actually been useful in my daily routine. The battery on the 13R is a beast. At 6000 mAh, it's a good-sized brick and it shows. Even on heavy use days, think hours of video calls, gaming and scrolling, I still end with around 20% left. On lighter days, I can unplug at 7 AM and not even think about charging until midnight with nearly half the battery still in the tank. The one miss here though is wireless charging. You'll have to plug it in the old-fashioned way. But with OnePlus's 80-watt fast charger included in the box, that's hardly a deal breaker. A full top-up takes under an hour. Finally, let's talk about cameras. The 13R gets a 50 megapixel main sensor and a 50 megapixel 2x telephoto and an 8 megapixel ultra-wide. After a couple of system updates, I haven't noticed any big changes to photo processing, which means the experience is still consistent. The main camera produces sharp, vibrant shots with slightly warmer tones and good dynamic range. The telephoto lens is excellent for portraits with natural-looking background blur and plenty of detail. The ultra-wide is the weakest link here. It's fine for casual shots, but lacks the color accuracy and sharpness of the main sensor. For video, the 13R can shoot 4K at 60 FPS on the main lens and stabilization is solid. The ultra-wide video caps out at 1080p 30 FPS, which feels like an afterthought. Selfies are reliable too, with decent detail and accurate skin tones as long as you're in good light. So 6 months in, the OnePlus 13R still feels like one of the best mid-range Android phones you can buy. It nails the basics: performance, battery life, display quality and software. Sure, it's not perfect. Wireless charging is missing, ultra-wide camera isn't anything special, and the software update policy isn't the best in class. But for most people, these are mostly small issues for what you get overall. At 39,999 rupees during Prime Day with a free pair of OnePlus Buds 3, this feels like a no-brainer for anyone looking for a phone that will stay fast for years without draining your wallet.